big earthquakes, one in 1906, another in 1989, nearly destroyed the city. A few kilometers away is the source of all the big earthquakes in San Francisco. It's the San Andreas Fault. Two colliding continental plates create this tear in the landscape. Sliding on top of hot magma, they slowly crunch past each other. The landscape above breaks apart and forms the San Andreas Fault. The continental plates never stop moving. So where the fault is locked, extreme tension builds up in the rocks. They bend and stretch until they shatter and unleash a barrage of shockwaves, an earthquake. A shockwave as powerful as 20 Hiroshima bombs rips through the Earth's crust and hits San Francisco only seconds later.
So moving about 5 millimeters a year.
The Transamerica Pyramid is full of clever engineering to protect it from earthquakes. Its pyramid shape gives it a low center of gravity. The glass and concrete cladding conceals a massive steel skeleton that holds its 48 floors. A gigantic steel truss wraps around the base to give it extra strength. And in the basement, a 30,000-ton steel and concrete block anchors the building firmly into the ground. These reinforcements keep the Transamerica Pyramid stable, even in a magnitude 7.1 earthquake. But in an earthquake, the city's bridges are just as vulnerable. Its foundations stick 20 meters deep into the solid rock below the seabed. $150,000 tons of concrete lock the 250-meter-tall towers firmly into the ground. Concrete blocks reach deep into the rocks on the banks. They anchor the two main cables that hold up the bridge. They're made of 130,000 kilometers of steel wire, enough to circle the globe 3 times. The Golden Gate Bridge bends and sways, but its smart engineering keeps it intact. 10 kilometers away, the Oakland Bay Bridge, the busiest bridge in America, isn't so lucky. It's too rigid to ride out the shockwaves. Bolts on the bridge joints shear off, and a 250-ton section comes loose.
The upper deck collapsed into lower deck. The upper structure has collapsed.
Is going up, right next to the old one. A huge steel cable wraps around the longest span of the bridge deck, so it can swing freely. The central tower has steel pylons that move independently. The beams connecting them can be formed like crumple zones to stop the tower from collapsing. The roadway is split into 28 sections, so it can stretch without breaking. Hidden inside the road, hollow steel beams absorb the energy of the quake to protect the rest of the structure. One of the most densely populated in Mission Bay, engineers are planning 6,000 new homes.
Now, Mission Bay has a layer of fill over it. It's a mix of rock and soil.
A clue lies hidden right under the waterfront. 10 meters below the ferry port are the remains of a wooden sailing ship. This area was once the port of San Francisco. Now it's a ship's graveyard.
You can get a sense of how soft it is by just sticking your thumb in it. It's not very strong, it's not good for foundation support.
600 square kilometers of land around San Francisco Bay was once ocean. Now it's full of rubble, rocks, and sand. On the surface, this ground looks strong enough to build on. But down below, the wet, soft bay mud makes it very dangerous in an earthquake. When the shock waves hit the loose soil, it liquefies and turns to quicksand. The houses on top can sink into the ground, and in extreme cases, they will collapse. They weld steel beams together to produce long foundation piles. Then hammer them through the rubble and mud of Mission Bay until they hit bedrock 80 meters below. They drive down over 200 of these piles in clusters, cap them with concrete, and tie them together with concrete beams. Finally, they cast a reinforced concrete mat on top. This produces a rock-solid base that will stop even a 5-story building from sinking. Extreme foundation technology will allow thousands of people to live safely on the land San Francisco has claimed from the sea. America has more hills than San Francisco. There are 43 in the city center alone. Over 28 million years, countless collisions along the San Andreas Fault folded the coastline like a giant accordion. The unstoppable force that gives San Francisco earthquakes also made its landmark hills. Was the cable car. The secret lies hidden under the tarmac. Inside a concrete tunnel, a steel cable moves at a constant speed of 15 kilometers an hour. A powerful clamp attaches the cable to the car, hauling it up even the steepest hills. The system even works when two lines cross. One driver releases his cable just before collision. Pulleys guide it safely below the other line, and the driver picks it up again on the other side. By 1900, there were 600 cable cars running up and down the streets of San Francisco. But the mega earthquake that struck in 1906 tore the network to shreds. Today, instead of going over the hills, engineers drill right through them. Instead of building one long, seamless tunnel, they build it in segments. A tunnel boring machine digs out the tunnel too, and lines it with concrete modules. They're coated in rubber so they can move against each other. This allows the whole tunnel tube to flex, so it doesn't break when the ground around them point for their station. They'll fill one section with concrete. This will shore up the walls so that diggers can smash through them and carve out a huge station cavern. Then the crews will line the walls with steel mesh and spray quick-drying concrete over it. Finally, they'll install the platforms and tracks, so the station is ready for business. The new Central Subway will be a big boost for San Francisco's transport network. 16 trains an hour will shuttle tens of thousands of people in and out of downtown every day. And the flexible tunnels and stations should survive almost anything the Earth throws at them, protecting its structures and people from a deadly consequence of earthquakes: fire. Here, engineers took extreme measures to collect more fresh water for the city. They built a dam right into the fault. This turned the tiny creek into a huge reservoir, filled with nearly 100 billion liters of water. And holding it all back is the Crystal Springs Dam, a mammoth feat of engineering. When it was built in 1888, it was the largest concrete dam in the world, with an amazing new earthquake-proof design. Under its skin lies not one solid wall, but a mosaic of gigantic interlocking concrete blocks. During a quake, these blocks can move, so the dam wall can flex without breaking. This clever design has kept Crystal Springs intact for more than 120 years. San Francisco's emergency water supply gives firefighters nearly unlimited firepower. 240 kilometers of quake-proof high-pressure pipes hidden under the streets keep the 1,500 hydrants from running dry, no matter what the earth throws at them. But the water pipes carrying the water 40 kilometers into the city were ripped apart. A disaster for the firefighters. They built a huge reservoir. It is strictly reserved for firefighting and designed to survive earthquakes. Engineers sank a pool deep into the hill and lined it with reinforced concrete slabs, nearly 20 centimeters thick. Joints between the slabs allow the pool to warp without cracking. The reservoir can store over 40 million liters of water. Gravity pulls this water downhill at extreme pressure into a network of pipes buried under the city. They hook up to 1,500 hydrants that feed nearly 70,000 liters a minute to San Francisco's firefighters. A sign that a quake is about to strike. And Parkville is the perfect place to look. The geologists wanted to get as close as possible to this spot. They drilled a hole 3 kilometers down into the heart of the San Andreas. Now they can put their instruments right next to the hyperactive rupture zone. 1 kilometer. Once in position, an arm clamps it to the side of the hole. Then it starts listening for minute changes in the Earth's crust. What the scientists are trying to find is a unique sound pattern just before an earthquake strikes.